And should I turn it directly over to you? I'd like to welcome everyone here today. Today is February 21st, Tuesday, and it's a regular meeting of the Dare County Board of Elections. And our first item of business is a Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join me with that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first order of business is the welcoming of our new member of our board who's replacing the late Jim Clark. His name is John Carter, and we will have the administration of his oath by the Dare County Clerk of Court, Dean Colson. Thank you, Chairman. And I guess you all can come up right up here to the front. Can you come forward? Have your Bible? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Hold it with your left. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, John Carter,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
that I'll be faithful and bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
which are or may be established
which are and may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I'll endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent with
not inconsistent with
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
and
and
that I will well and truly execute
that I will
well and truly
well and truly execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of a member of the Dare County Board of Elections
of a member of the Dare County Board of Elections
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll get your signature right here. Copies here.
Does he got a nameplate yet? Yeah.
Chairman, I present to you John Lynn Carter III as your newest board member. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. John, congratulations and welcome. We look forward to working with you, and we have a seat prepared for you too, up here. You get right to work.
All right.
Glad to have you.
Thank you, Dean. Not like you can't.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
All right, our next item of business is under old business. And we had started a discussion per a motion by Mr. Ken Buchanan, discussion regarding the day and time of our meetings. We were, and to give John a little background, we had changed the time from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. so that Jim could make it to another board meeting. And so we're now at liberty to go back to the original time. And we pulled back from making a decision because we had some members absent, you know.
Okay.
So we wanted everybody to have a chance to weigh in on that. You know, if there's any kind of problem with your own schedule or anything like that, this would be the time for it. So I'd like to entertain a motion that would describe the new.
I would like I would like to make a motion that our meeting will be starting at 10 a.m. instead of 11 on the third Tuesday of the month.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Does anybody have anything relevant in terms of your personal schedules that would conflict with that? I'm okay with it myself.
I'm okay.
John, you all right with that time? Okay. Is there any other discussion or any comments?
Just one question, Mr. Chairman. This would become effective for our next meeting?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
change my calendar.
Yes. Okay.
I'll make sure that's updated on the website as well.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing that there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the new time being 10 a.m. on the third Tuesday of each month, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, then that is our new time, 10 a.m. So for anyone watching, you're going to have to be on the ball a little bit earlier to catch these meetings. Our next item is under new business is the approval of the minutes of our last regular meeting and our closed session that took place within that meeting. I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve our minutes for both the open meeting and the closed session that occurred that day. Is that all right? We take them together?
I'm
With
fine that,
everybody?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, all right.
I do have one comment.
Okay,
Um, Jackie had requested one change, which I made last night. I had originally said, I had a phrase when we were talking about a possibility that the budget procedure would change, which it's not going to apparently. I had the phrase to use as it sees fit for the Board of Elections, and Jackie suggested that I use the phrase to distribute appropriately within the department's line items, which sounds a lot more professional. And so I have made that change, and that's the only change I've made to the minutes of the January 17th meeting.
all right. Any other discussion?
I would certainly accept the changes.
Yeah. Okay, all right. It's been moved and seconded. Seeing that there's no other discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes as corrected, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the minutes are approved. The next item under new business is our AutoMark contract quote. And just for clarification, and Jackie, you might want to help me because I may say the wrong thing on this, but the AutoMarks are pieces of digital equipment, the way I understand them, that we're required to have at each voting place by law. And it's a part of meeting ADA requirements for voting that takes place in our county. So it's a piece of equipment that we that we rent, right? We have a lease on these, and we have a maintenance and repair agreement with the company that makes those. So I trust everyone had a chance to look at that contract. Is there a motion to accept that contract? We can get to discussion after that.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments, questions, or discussion?
Just so that Mr. Carter knows, this is actually for those who are visually impaired. It's the machine that helps them either see or hear the ballot.
And it's actually, it's a ballot marking device.
Yeah.
That has a screen on it so that they can make the screen more visible, easier for them to read. And it also has Braille for someone that may be blind. And it just basically gives them the option of marking their ballot to be inserted into the tabulator.
We're still having one for each location plus
one.
2 spares.
One each, yeah, we'll have one for each precinct, and we have 2 spares, because currently we were leasing 21, so then we had those just sitting there, and we're paying for those, so I was like, we don't need to be paying for something just sitting there.
Right.
All we need is really 2 spares. So that's why I cut it back from 21 to 18, because it's expensive for each machine.
Yeah, that's a good call. Is there any other discussion or any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and move to a vote on accepting that contract and the quote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, the Automark contract and quote is approved. Next item on our agenda is our budget for 2023, 24. And does that go into 25 too?
Well, what it is we have the budget already set for 23, and what they like for us to do is to look at that while we're midstream to
Right.
see if there needs to be any adjustments to it. So we look at that as well as prepare the budget for the 2024, 2025, and, that 2-year
So
budget.
technically it's 24, 25 is the
The
budget
new
that we're
budget
doing.
is 24, 25.
Okay.
But I just provided that so that you would have some, timeline and how things have been flowing.
Does anyone have any questions or discussion about any aspect of anything you saw in the budget?
Well, regarding the Automark that we just discussed, it looks like there's a little extra added in there in case it goes up. Is that right?
Well, the thing with that is, when I put an amount in the budget for the Automark, it's really a guesstimate because I
Right.
don't know what the cost is gonna be. But historically, they have increased the cost every year, so I don't know what to expect. So I put a little bit more in there so that, we're covered.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question about the Southern Shores Precinct.
Use that microphone. Pull it up to you.
Question about the Southern Shores Precinct and the place of voting, which is the town hall. And there had been discussion amongst some of the citizens in Southern Shores, as well as, I know in a Board of Education meeting years past, when the voting place had changed for Southern Shores to First Flight Elementary. And then it was, I think it was changed back to Town Hall, or, anyway, there was a significant dollar amount in order to send out notification of a change in voting place.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, and the fact that there are some that are not happy with the fact that the amount of parking available at Town Hall is so limited.
Mhm.
And it would be much safer for all involved to have a larger facility such as First Flight Elementary.
Mhm.
Is it possible that we could reserve funds and have a discussion about a change in voting?
Yeah, this
What?
is an ongoing issue and discussion over the years. And I go back a year and a half on this. I'm not as grounded as Jackie is, but she could explain that to you,
Mhm.
The history of it. And also what we're allowed to do as a board of elections. And one of the things we are allowed to do is if we happen to be in a bind where we didn't have a place to have a precinct, North Carolina law allows us to move into a school and
Mhm.
use the school facility and usurp the use of the school for school that day. It's something that we try really hard to avoid.
Mhm.
On the other side of that, Dare County Schools, when they set their calendar, they're aware of this, and they usually try to leave that day of voting open as a teacher work day so that they're not using the school that day. But Jackie would be better able to give you the details behind all this and the history of it. And, it is a situation that, is fraught with problems no matter which way we go,
Mhm.
so.
It's more scheduling, I think, with the school. As I recall, it had to do with redistricting or
Mhm.
litigation associated with redistricting and primaries being rescheduled and that sort of thing that
Yeah.
caused a bit of chaos in terms of speaking to the school about when we would need to reserve that space.
Mhm.
And so, as I recall, the decision was made just to stay with the town hall
Mhm.
at that point. But I don't know whether this is something that the board wants to revisit for, say, 2024, 25, or we'll just defer that until a later time.
Yeah, frankly, based on what I've learned from this process thus far with those two sites, our best bet would be to find another site altogether. But I haven't been able to dream one up, that would be a place that would provide the safe parking, the space,
Right.
and, it's a real tough one, as far as that goes. But Jackie, do you have anything that you could say to John, that might help with this?
Nothing other than the fact that the schools were used, when the schools were used in 2020, they were due to the pandemic,
Mhm.
and that was the reasoning behind using the schools.
Yeah.
Certainly parking has been an issue there, but we have not been able to find another location to have the Southern Shores precinct in Southern Shores.
So
Mhm.
Jackie, we can review this to see if we can get back into the school, can't we?
Well, not for the upcoming election, possibly for the 2024 general, maybe, because it's like Chairman Saunders stated, the school worked their academic calendar around that, and they've already contacted us and asked us if we were planning to use the schools for the municipal election, and I told them that at this time, we had no plans to use the schools for the municipal election.
One thing that's interesting in the landscape of solutions that North Carolina law does allow us to do, and we were able to use this to solve one of our two problem sites. They allow us to use houses of worship.
Hmm.
And so what we did in that situation with Collington, the precinct of Collington, all of our elections prior had been held at the firehouse right there next to the Collington Road. And the problem with that site is, especially during the pandemic, is it's real tight. And you have people exiting the building after they voted, going downstairs on the same stairs that the waiting line is standing on. And so you have people passing in close proximity. And then you also have people parking on Collington Road and running through traffic back and forth to vote. So we prevailed on Liberty Christian Fellowship, which is, I think, one street farther west and back from Collington Road, and has an expansive facility and huge area for parking. And they welcomed us to come in and have we had our last election there. And our last two elections, did we do two?
Yes.
Yeah. And as far as I know, we had no problems. Voters could get in easily and get out easily. So, in your community, don't leave out houses of worship in terms of thinking about
Okay.
places. And if you have any contacts, you might want to talk to them and see, but basically we need space,
Yeah.
we need safe access and parking.
Okay.
So that's something we can work on, and it's wide open. It's fair game.
Okay.
If you want to make some contacts and talk to them and see what you can find out, that's all we did before with Liberty Christian. So it's a good point, and thank you for your input.
There's also a deadline for changing a precinct. I can't remember if it's 60 days or 90 days. It may be more than that, but you do have to send out those notices and all of that.
Yeah.
So
It has to
it's a
be
big
approved.
deal.
Yeah, it's a process. It has to be,
Yeah,
we have to submit our request to the state, and they
Yeah.
have to approve it and everything.
right.
Yeah. That's right. All right. So I think we have a motion on the floor for the budget. Are there any other questions?
We don't have a motion.
Or we don't?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm keeping up with this.
Thank you. I need my guardrails today.
We're just talking about the budget.
I just have a general question about the budget, Jackie, and that's looking at requests for 24 and 25, which I assume we're working off of current figures. We have had a degree of inflation affecting a number of products and services, and this looks pretty tight in terms of being tied to the what we budgeted for 22 and 23. Is there room to build some cushion in there? So as vendors like the contract we just agreed to bump the numbers higher than we might expect?
We can certainly, if that's what the board would like to do, as far as making the numbers a little bit more, you can certainly do that. But again, we can do that, but it's still going to be up to the county manager and our board of commissioners to approve it.
How
These
about,
numbers are just proposals that will be submitted to the county manager and the board of commissioners, so they will approve it. Or they'll call me and ask me, why did you have an increase of $5,000 on line item XYZ or whatever? So yes, it is certainly doable. You can certainly change any number to increase it to whatever you think is suitable.
I had a discussion with Jackie about covering overages that could occur.
Mhm.
And the budget itself, the way I understand it, Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way the budget is structured, the numbers in each one of the line items is structured such that they have a little bit of cushion on them. And if they end up with, that they need some money in another line item, they are allowed, with the input of the finance office, to move money over to another line item. So there is some consideration of that that's built into the budget. Now, whether it's enough or not, I couldn't speak to that, but
For example, say the
But that's-
advertising and promotion line item has a requested amount of $10,000.
Mhm.
Okay, so say we get midway into the budget and our supply line item is starting to get a little short. I can move money from the advertising and promotions line item to the supply line item and cover any costs that way. There's a process called a budget amendment, and it's just a form I have to fill out showing what line item the funds are taken from and what line item the funds are going to, and that has to be approved by the county manager prior to them moving the money over in the line items.
Well, since you raised that example, just let me ask, what do you include under advertising and promotion as a line item in terms of activities on behalf of your office?
Advertising and promotion covers anything that we would advertise, like we have to advertise, we have to put our ads for our meetings, our resolutions, or just elections in general. We have several ads that have to go in the newspaper,
Mhm.
and that is where that line item pays for those things. Like we have advertisements that have to run once weekly in the paper. We have some that run monthly. It just depends on anything that's advertising related would come out of that line item.
Okay. Looking at spending to date against that same number, $10,000, how are we doing in terms of that line item?
That line item, historically, I have not seen that line item exceed $5,000. The most I think I've seen it is just a little over 3,000
Okay.
historically.
Okay.
even with those mailouts, when we changed the two?
That has nothing to do with the advertising line item. That's a different line item. You're talking about the changing in the precincts where we send all the cards. That comes out of the telephone and postage line item. So that comes out of the separate line item.
And the cards came out of supplies.
And the expense for the cards, the cards themselves come out of the supply line item. So your cards come out of supplies, and then the postage to send those cards come out of the telephone and postage line item.
Done? I have one more. I have one question.
As I recall, it was a significant expense. It was around
I'm
20,000.
done.
You were at that Board of Education meeting when they were discussing their concerns about trying to get the make available school for the voters.
I don't recall going to a board of
Well,
education meeting.
perhaps I misremember, but
Maybe it was a former director. It wasn't me.
But it was, they gave a dollar figure in terms of how much it would cost to do the mailings. Because it was almost like we would have to do 2 mailings in order to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. So it was a significant
It
dollar
is
amount.
expensive to do the mailings, particularly now that the postage has increased. It would be a cost.
Do we have access to the actuals? I mean, it's difficult to tell how we're doing with respect to the budget when I have nothing to compare it to in terms of what the actual expenses were.
That's something that I'm about to request,
Okay.
that we get, updates on our budget as we go through the year.
Mhm.
And we had that discussion, I guess it was last November, wasn't it, Ken? And I've held back on it until we had the budget, because I want it to go in with the budget.
Okay.
That we get feedback, because as I said before, I don't have any interest in micromanaging the budget at all.
Mhm.
And I think Jackie and Kelly do a great job of projecting cost. They've got enough experience with it and everything. And there are things that they see in the ebb and flow of money that we don't get to see, even if we had that spreadsheet. But
And I can pull up on the account and see, what we, spent in different line items. I just need to know which one we want to see. Because it's not something that's all on one spreadsheet. I have to pull it up individually.
the crux of me and our board wanting to have that feedback is that it's something we have to vote on.
Yes.
And so, I think it's fair to the board to give us that information so we can watch it as we go through the year,
Mhm.
and that's my own feeling. I think Mr. Ken agrees with that, that it's an empty exercise, unless we have information we can follow along. And we also have the opportunity to help, if we see something that, we can
Mhm.
innovate or something like that. So I think it helps all of us as in a team effort to do a good job. So that's something that I'll be writing and submitting
Okay.
when that budget goes in.
And John, it's also complicated by the two facts that we don't have, the fiscal year is not a calendar year.
Mhm.
And every election cycle is different because, for example, this year we only have municipal. Next year, it'll be a presidential. There's a primary, there may be second primaries and all of that. So they have to budget for all of that with every election cycle within each fiscal year. And
Mhm.
it's complicated.
Yeah.
And the telephone and postage line item encompasses the telephones in our office, the CenturyLink internet service. It encompasses a whole lot of the everyday office stuff.
Mhm.
So and then the postage is broken out of that as well.
Mhm.
The proposed budget for the part-time election workers, is it geared with an increase? I mean, with inflation going, you're going to be paying more hourly rate. Is this budget,
No, our hourly rate has not changed.
but it might, or it will, or, who, we decide that or the state decides that?
No, the board, you all decide the hourly rate. If you want to give the precinct officials an increase in pay, from $12 an hour to whatever, that's a board decision. The state does not regulate that.
Okay, that's, Skip, where I'd like to see what we've been spending so we can see what we're paying these
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have hard jobs filling locations. If we pay somebody $6 an hour, they don't want to work there.
Yeah, you're right.
So it'd be nice to know what we pay each of, that's all.
Yeah, I
And it's
agree.
important to remember that on election day, our workers are paid a lump sum amount
Right, they're not an
based
hourly
on
rate.
their position.
Yeah, like the chief judge gets what, $300 a day, and the assistants get $200 a day,
$225.
okay? So,
And
but
then
the,
and then the judges get $250.
yeah, but the chief judge gets $300.
$300.
Yeah, okay. But what happens is, that's been like that for the last couple of years.
Yes.
So that's what I'm talking
And
about.
that is still more than what most counties, way more than what most counties are paying their people.
Yeah, but a lot of these people in their county have a lot more expenses than they do in Podunk County, the middle of the
Yes.
state,
Yes.
okay? They're
Oh,
paying,
I'm just letting you know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't have an argument with it at all.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just saying-
our,
I'm
our
just-
cost of living here is a
I'm
little
just
higher than
putting
some of
that
the
out
other
there.
counties.
One,
So
one thing that I want to say here for the benefit of anyone who may be watching this meeting online is that that lump sum payment for the day of the election that they serve also includes one or two trainings that they attend. And
have
how
one
much
training.
No,
time?
that's
It's one training, right?
training
And,
is separate.
and so that's, how long is that training, Jackie?
Training is separate.
It's 2 hours? Okay, so just to be clear about that, you know,
No,
it's,
training
It
is
also
separate.
includes setup on Monday night.
Yeah.
Separate is, training is separate.
No.
We don't pay them a separate amount for training. It's included in their pay,
Early voting training is separate.
but
That
not
is a
election
separate
day.
yeah,
Okay, so we do, see, we don't pay them all, so we do have a separate account for some training.
yeah.
Early voting is an hourly rate, election day is a flat rate.
But it doesn't come out of the training. It all comes from the poll worker's salary amount.
And this training is what the,
Staff.
So you have training, the training is for, such as like registration fees, if we were to register for a class. For example, we had those virtual trainings, in the
Mhm.
past. I had to pay a fee for each one of us to, register for that training. And that's where I pay for that registration out of, is that training line item.
there's a $6,000 fee and a $12,000 number, and then there's another one for any other than staff of a $10,000 number.
That's travel. You're talking about the travel line item. So the travel line item for staff is for Kelly and myself. The travel line item that says travel hyphen other would be for board members, or if we had a poll worker or someone that was doing some delivering of supplies or running for us back and forth, we would pay them out of that line item.
That actually seems a little high to me.
Excuse me?
That actually seems a little high to me, 12,000.
Travel other?
Yeah,
Not when, if we had in-person training where each board member was going to travel to an in-person training, it's not high because.
so that's what you're anticipating.
Yeah, we haven't seen that.
Because
Yeah,
that
that's
pays for
right.
your hotel,
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah.
So it's really not.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, we went,
okay.
Fair move,
That makes
so-
sense, thanks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
no, it was built in the building where they had the seminar, it was first class.
All right, has everyone asked everything they need to ask? Silence is an expression too, you know.
That's thoughtful
So,
silence, Mr.
Basically,
Chairman.
well, I just have a sort of a general question. Basically, if we approve this budget request today, this will then go to the county.
Yes, this is what I will have to enter. I still have work to do as far as putting it in the system because it's not in the system yet.
Okay.
And it would be reviewed by the county manager prior to it going to the Board of Commissioners. And if he has any questions, he'll contact me and adjustments could be made at that point without you all seeing it.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess, just following up on some of this conversation, two questions. And the first would be on the salaries for election workers, whether we should build in an increase. I know the county itself is reviewing all of its salary schedules, and which I think is a good thing. As Ken pointed out, there are some areas where it is difficult to recruit, and sweetening the pot a little bit might help us in some of that recruiting. Secondly, I think budgeting the same amount for postage in the next fiscal year is just not, just doesn't square with where the direction the postal service seems to be going on their fees. And I think I would say, unless we had a lot left over in the budget we're in, that we add an adjustment in specifically for postage. I'm not thinking so much of telephone service, internet costs, although they may or may not change, but more in the postage area, because that it's a demand we have to meet. Mailings of various kinds, we're required to do that, I understand. And we have zero control over the rates that we would have to pay because it's controlled by the Postal Service. So I would suggest an adjustment, an increase. I can't get, regret I can't give you amount, but I'd
I
say,
was just going to ask if you had a number in mind.
well, my number is about 7.5% that I would increase those two areas. And, you know, if I'm wrong, you can take it out of my salary.
And the reason that, you know, Kelly and I, when we did the budget, the poll worker, election worker salary, we took the number of poll workers that we thought that we would use and actually calculated a dollar amount.
Mhm.
And that's how we come up with the figure, so that we're really, really close
Yeah.
on what we think we would spend for each given election. And that's how we derived at those amounts, just to give you an idea as
Yeah.
to how we derived at that. And as far as the telephone and postage amount, we derived that because we know that we weren't going to be changing any precincts for the municipal election or anything like that. And so that's how we did that as well. So I would need to have a number as to what the board would like for me to request as the proposed dollar amount for any line item that you want to change.
Can you give me a sense of how many localities had vacancies with respect to your poll workers? I mean, was it a large percentage overall, or was it
But
one or
We
two
didn't have any-
precincts?
we had them all covered.
We don't have any vacancies.
No,
The problem
but-
is we move people around,
Mhm.
okay,
Out of precinct.
out of precinct. And it'd be nice if we got them all in precinct, and maybe with some money, we can do that. Now, what you're saying is we spent 123,000 in 22 budget, and you got 85,000 for 23 budget.
I'm not saying we spent that amount. I'm saying that's the amount
That was the
we,
budget, 123. Now the budget's 85.
because you have a municipal election for the 85, because we don't have but 6 precincts that have to have coverage. So that is going to be less than what it would be in 2024, because we'll have all 16 precincts.
Yep.
Right, but if we have a primary and a second primary, we're gonna still run our bill up more.
In 2024.
What do we have this year?
We only have a municipal, you have to remember, in the
And
odd
odd
number
number
years, we only have a municipal, which only entails 6 precincts. In the even number years,
Yeah,
we have
okay, yeah.
16 precincts.
Yeah, okay, I agree.
Because
with
we have
that.
we have a primary, the possibility of a second primary, and then the general election on the even numbered years.
And we also have no primaries in municipal elections.
No primary for municipal.
No,
So 24's budget would actually, correct me if I'm wrong, include the municipal for this year, the primary for
For
next year,
and
and the potential second primary,
Right.
Right.
which is why you see that increased cost.
Right.
And then 25's budget
Includes the general election in
includes
'24.
the general of 24.
Right.
But it ends June 30th, so there's no other election going into
Attached to that.
25 before 26's budget.
my problem
Also.
is if we have 22, 123, and you have the same in 24, and then 23 is 85 for the municipal, and you have the same in 25. my concept is 24 and 25 should be higher than 22 and 23. The cost of living, the county got a 5% raise, increase in raise.
Well, we weren't anticipating an increase.
Right, because we based our numbers on what we pay our people now. So if the board chooses to make a motion to increase the pay, then yes, you would need to increase that number. But as we were preparing this at that time, we were basing it on what they're getting paid now. We had nothing else to go on other than what they are getting paid now. And
When is this budget due to the county?
I have to have it by the end of this month.
And
Okay.
I understand how you put this together.
Yes.
And the basis for doing that. I guess one issue I have with, on the salaries for our workers, in addition to the point that Ken raised about, would it help with recruiting in some areas where it's just tough to find people? And that is, if we lock in this number, does the board then cut off its ability to consider a raise for these employees after the budget is submitted? So we would have to, if we wanted to consider a raise, we would have to add the money now.
That's correct, and that's what I'm asking. If that is something that you want to do, is doable. I just need to know what additional figure you'd like for me to add to that line item in anticipation, and I can include that as a comment in the budget proposal that is sent to the county manager, explaining why we're requesting that dollar amount.
All right, I did a 5% increase just to see what the number is. It comes out at 129,000 approximately. I would make that an even 130 instead of 123.
How about a
So
percent?
130 for 2024, and then what about 2025?
Same increase.
I would do same percent increase, but let me just
4,000, so it's
clear this all out.
90,000, 90.
I'm
So
certainly
what
getting,
you're- I'm sorry, if I may ask, so what you're saying is, so you've given yourself $7,000 additional monies. So at some later date, you'll take that amount and try to come up with some sort of division so that you know who gets what amount, like what each increase is gonna be?
no, we'll leave that to you.
No, well, no,
I
no,
think-
no, no,
Well, and
no,
I
no,
think
no,
we
no.
have to vote on
We-
decide that ourselves with your input,
Yeah.
if I
Yeah,
understand
we're
what you
talking
were
about-
saying.
He was talking about like a 5% raise across the board.
Well,
Like
because
the county gave.
$130,000 is $7,000 in addition, right? So that's all you really have to go across X amount of poll workers.
Well, if this is the amount that goes across all the poll workers now, and we increase everybody by 5%, the 130 should be covered, right? This is the number that covers everybody.
Okay.
So if we give everybody a 5% raise, that means that number's gonna be 5% higher. So that's how we got to be 130. So everybody's raised, somebody who made $300 would get a 5% raise. Everybody who get $2 would get a 5% raise. It doesn't matter how much they make, they will get a equal 5% raise. So therefore, it doesn't matter what the number is, the raise is 5% across everybody. So we don't have to sit here and figure out who's gonna get $1, who's gonna get 27 cents.
Right.
We just give them a flat 5%. That's easy. So there's no discussion on who gets what. Everybody gets the same amount. Click.
Do we need a separate motion on the salary rate, or is just making the adjustment with the understandings of what we talked about sufficient?
That's sufficient, because like I said, I'll enter all the information into the system, and that's what goes in. I mean.
Is there a number for the 85,000 plus 5%?
90 something, right?
Should be
85,
less than 90.
5, 8, 40 is 4,000, 80,000 is
Something
4,
like
so
that.
80, that's
Should be
about 90.
89 or
It's 89,250.
So make it 90.
So make it
I'd say make it, it's very close to 90,000
Yeah.
for the 2025 request. So I would make it, it comes out at 5% is $89,250. So I would I'd just make that 90.
So I'll be, changing those numbers, and the explanation would be anticipated increase in
5% raise.
precinct official pay.
Yes.
And based on the previous conversation that I heard from the board, do we also want to bump up the telephone and postage for postage, maybe 1% in the next 2 years or 2%?
I have a little bit of trouble, getting into something like that on that particular thing, because we don't have the benefit of watching the salary unfold. I mean, the budget at work during the year, where we're over, where we're under. We don't have that yet.
That's why we-
Well, for
But that's the
2020
point of the
I
conversation
can
is,
tell you right now, for 2023, that budget line item was $10,000. We've actually spent, as of what I'm looking at now, $4,397.68, which we have now available to us is $5602.32. And we have to go from now until June 30th on this 2023 budget. And
So that-
again, that telephone line item, telephone and postage line item covers the phones for our office, the postage, everything that we mail out, my cell phone that the county has provided.
Jackie, I agree, but we remember, we were discussing at the beginning of this conversation, Southern Shores voting is really bad. You got 4 car spaces for 4,000 people. We're talking about moving it to the school. So possibly in 24, we can get a change. We can talk to the state about let's using the school back in 24. Okay?
That's fine, I just,
So
Need a
we
number.
would, the number
but we're
should be.
talking about apples and oranges here.
No, we're talking about if we change the precinct from Pitt Center to the school, we have to send out 2 letters, which are
we have to send
5,000.
out one card. We have to send cards to every affected voter in
Southern
Southern
Shore,
Shores only.
twice though.
No, once,
The second time would be if they're going
if
back.
they're going back,
Uh-huh.
And that's
only
why-
if they go back, so,
Which is what we did last time.
right,
Okay.
so
Oh, okay, so
But again,
if you're gonna make it permanent, it would be one time. If you're only gonna do it a one-time shot, then you would have to do it twice.
okay, so are we talking about 60 cents a card? Or are we talking about
They're a
both
little
ways?
bit cheaper than
They're bulk
regular
rate.
letter, mail. I don't know if they would get, maybe you could say 45 or 50 cent to
Times,
be safe.
times
I think
what,
it's 50
2,
cents.
3,000 people?
Southern Shores is,
About,
I could find out.
5
Would you
or
like me to
6
go look
thousand.
real quick?
Well, roughly, so what I'm getting at is the fact that if we're talking about changing for 24, you're telling me that we only spent 4,000 in postage. Do we need as much in 24? We might, because we were discussing changing the precinct location, right?
you might, yes.
So that $12,000,
Times, even if you went high and said 5,000, I mean, you could do $2,500 or something.
so 12,000 then wouldn't be that far off.
And may I suggest also, if you're gonna increase that for telephone and postage, then the supply line item would also be affected, because that will require additional, card stock.
Yeah,
Well, and the population is increasing, I guess, in
Yes.
Southern Shores as well
Yes.
as everywhere.
yes.
But also, you gotta also think about it, it also kinda balances, because you got new and then you got removals as well, so they
Right.
kinda go together.
No, there's more new lots being built than people moving out.
Well, my original comment was basically, if we're trying to budget for the needs a year and a half to 2 years from now, and we know we're going to want to, or the sense of the board is that we're going to want to pay the precinct workers a little bit more, and Randy had said something earlier about costs of postage likely to continue to go up over the next year, year and a half. Would it make sense to add into the budget now a little bit more for those postage
Well,
costs?
we did. We went from this year's 10 to 12, right?
Okay,
Correct,
I see that.
correct.
See, we did go.
Okay,
up by
all right.
2,000.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay,
but the total over 2 years is still 24,000.
Yeah, okay, so the,
Okay.
That's,
yeah.
it's just where it, which year it's
which
being
product goes
allocated.
into, yeah. So I
So-
just, I don't really, I think my preference would be to bump it up maybe 1,000 or 2, but I don't feel strongly about that. So if the board does
I have
not,
no feel for it
that's-
whatsoever.
yeah.
Because I don't have any,
But I just feel like we
History.
need to deal with it now
Okay.
rather than wait
Yeah.
and see over time.
we went up 2,000 in postage and telephone, and we went up 2,000 in supplies. See, supplies right now is 10,000, and next year's supplies for 2024 is 12,000. So we
And
are,
that was done, and that was done with, knowledge of the increase in paper cost and things of that nature.
Which will continue to go up probably.
so the telephone, we went up, the postage went up 2,000. So what we have to do is increase the supply then in case
So.
we buy more stock, et cetera. So that,
Are we keeping the telephone and postage at 12, or are you saying you wanted to go up to 14?
I- we-
I would, personally, I would take it up to 14, because I think we can count on, even if we don't have somebody from the post office telling us what their next increase is going to be, I think we can count on an increase, and in mailing costs, and we should build it in.
And that would be for
What year would
24
that be?
and 25?
25. 24 we went up 2,000.
Actually, 24, we went down 2,000.
We went down 2,000
No,
in
wait.
24.
No,
We went up 2,000 for 20, from 23 to 25.
we had 10,000 in 23, 12,000 in 24.
Right.
Yeah, and 14,000 in 22, the last general.
But if you're comparing municipal to municipal, it's 10,000 in municipal 2023 and 12,000 in municipal 2025.
Yeah, but I would increase the 2024 request. I think that's where you're going to have
I agree.
A big,
whether it's shifting some precincts based on some subsequent decisions, and you're just going to have more mailings. I mean, it's a bigger election. So I'd add,
2,000 to it.
I think I'd add 2,000. I'd keep the 2024 at the 2022 level, which is $14,000.
Okay.
And what about 2025? Would you do anything with that?
It went
That's-
down.
that's-
It's 2,000 up.
It's 2,000 up over the
Okay.
2023, so I think that would accommodate any expense increase that the post office initiates, whether it's 2024 or 2025, that would cover it.
So you're saying keep 2025 at 12?
I think we could hold that at 12 because that's an increase over 2023 and the election pattern is the same.
That's
So-
correct.
Okay.
Now, while we're at
And
it,
what about the supply line
supplies,
item?
that should go up also. The paper
Um,
cost is outrageous.
Yeah, I guess,
I did go up 2,000 on that
yeah,
for both years.
right.
I like that. I don't know if we need
Well, we're
more.
back to this, if we change precincts, like in Southern Shores, we got that cute little card stock we have to buy, et
Yeah,
cetera. So possibly in 24, we should go up, like 5% of the whole thing.
But you're only talking about additional card stock for one precinct.
And mailing and postage
yeah.
and hauling and hauling.
Well, we built some of that into the postage
Right.
money.
Okay, so,
And looking at supplies, you've got supplies at 12 and 12
yeah,
going forward. And then ballots and coding. What falls into, is this the printing of ballots?
No, sir. That is just, well,
I
it
think
is. It's the, so for every election, we have the cost of purchasing the ballots and then the coding of the ballots, which is the coding so that the machine is capable of reading the
Mhm.
ballot.
Okay,
So that is a cost that we incur for every election.
right, all right.
And that all comes out of that one line item. And again, it's a guesstimate because I don't know exactly how much that's going to cost because the number of our ballot order changes based on our voter registration. So that again was just a guesstimate.
Are we seeing an increase in voter registration at all?
Yeah.
Again, it kind of, it's been steady, but it goes, it's not a substantial increase lately, is it, Kelly?
You have attrition as well as additional people.
Yes.
I'll tell you where
We
we
may
might,
register 5 today, but we also may remove 5.
Right.
You know, it just depends on,
where we might need an increase on that line item, now that I'm thinking about it, is the 2025 request, because the 2024 presidential election in November of 2024 is going to fall into the 2025 budget, right? The fiscal year,
The general will,
the general will.
Yes.
So, and we know that people turn out more for a presidential election, so we have to have more ballots and everything. So if we were going to bump any ballot and coding number up, it might need to be the 2025 requests to cover additional ballots and coding for
again,
the general
2025 is a
presidential.
municipal.
No, but the 2025 budget, the fiscal year starts June 30th of 2024 and would cover the 2024 November presidential election.
Correct.
So that's what I'm thinking about. But don't you have to print 100% of the ballots necessary anyway?
We always order 100%, we order more than 100%.
Yeah,
We
you
usually
have to.
order about 110, 115%, because you need to allow for spoilage.
Okay,
But
and
they-
you've already accounted for that in here,
Yeah,
in
they-
this number?
They would buy the ballots in 24.
Yeah,
because
it's a guess.
You wouldn't wait until 25 election. They already got the ballots in-house.
What?
You buy these ballots 6 months, 3 months ahead of time.
No,
No.
no.
no. they're
Because
not-
you don't know
not
how long
like
they're
that.
gonna be.
Cause you have to wait until you,
Primary.
We have to-
know who's on the
We
ballot.
have to know who's on the ballot. The ballots aren't, for example, we'll have filing in July for the municipal, okay? So filing will be in July for the municipal. The ballot process will begin at the end of that filing period, where they'll start proofing and making sure everything is right. I'd say by sometime in August, we will have placed our order for our ballots.
So you pay for them the next fiscal year of the election. What she was saying is, this $20,000, where am I? Yeah, $20,000 doesn't include all of the presidential expenses.
It includes the general
Just the
election.
general.
Just the general, not the primary,
2024.
just the general.
So but you pay for them in 2025.
Yes.
Yes.
With,
With the
around-
2025 budget money.
Around August,
After the
prior to
filing
the
deadline.
November general. So she orders the ballots in August for the November general.
And so we're saying 20,000 is okay.
If you
Or-
budgeted 20,000 based on 110 or 115% of the registered vote, but you don't know yet how many registered voters are gonna be then.
Right. I mean, if you wanted to increase that some, we could increase it, because it is the same as the 2023. So I don't see any harm in increasing that 2025.
I would like to, because,
How much?
I would say the 5%
At a minimum.
that Randy suggested on the other. 5% of 20,000, you can do that, man.
5 times 2 is 10, 1,000, that's all,
1,000.
right?
Jackie, how have your projections, I know you haven't done this, but so many times, you guys have done this, what, 4 times now as a team?
The budget or the election?
The budget over these
No,
items that we're talking
Only
about?
one other.
One.
Only one other.
One other time, so you don't have a history or data, past data for overruns and what you've gone under or anything like that?
We
You're-
don't really track that, because we are focused on making sure we've got enough.
Right, right.
So, and it's hard to adjust. I mean, it's really hard to determine what you're going to need. So I've always ordered more than I need.
Right. So you've already done that in this budget.
We gotta go back to the commissioners again.
No.
You haven't done that in this budget?
Excuse me.
You haven't built in the ability to order more than you know you're gonna need.
2 years ago, we ran out of money. We had to go back to the commissioners because there were 2 primaries to get additional funding, right?
No, that was not correct. That was only for the poll worker salary because the budget that was done prior to my tenure was not,
Okay, was
didn't
that-
have a high enough money in it to cover the poll worker salaries, FICA and
Social
things of that
Security,
nature,
yeah,
social
okay.
security.
I remember
right.
we had to go back to the
That
commissioners.
was just something, that was a one-time thing that wasn't done
Yeah, I know,
correctly.
but we had to go back with a.
But we didn't go back and ask for any money. We moved money around from within my line items to cover that cost. We found money within,
I don't want to go do it again.
we found money within our budget. That's what we had to do. We had to move money around where we had surplus on one line item. We took, a couple $1,000s from this line item, a couple $1,000s from this line item, and we were able to cover it that way.
Okay.
That's what I was getting at, it's
I-
like historical data based on the projections they've made before, as a means of projecting what you're gonna need in the future. And what I'm talking about is like, in my own business of residential construction, I knew the material items and the trades that were the lightning rods, the ones that were gonna be,
The most expensive.
they could be, they not just necessarily more expensive, but more vulnerable to market dynamics. And some were static, and I didn't have to worry about those. But the ones that were more vulnerable and would more reactive, then I would, have to carefully
This is
build in
why
something.
we need to see where we're going.
Exactly
so we
what
don't- we don't do
exactly.
this stupid stuff again.
That's right. And
We're wasting, we have no idea what we're doing. We're just trying to second
I
guess.
think we do have an idea of what we're doing.
Yeah, but
Randy,
well,
if
in
you
general, we
run
do.
some
but
numbers.
It's not based
Well,
on data
On
or
the
anything.
20,000, if it's 5%, it's only going up to 21.
Yeah, so why don't we make it like 22 or 23?
Yeah, I think the cost of
Paper.
paper products, and particularly something specialized like ballots where you can, if you're the manufacturer, you can really squeeze because everybody's got to have them. I think we should anticipate an increase higher than 5% on that.
So you want to take that 20,000 up to what, 25?
I'd take it to 25.
I think that's a good idea.
And can we go back to the part-time election worker salary? So that number, you have to also take in consideration, like Kim was saying, the FICA and the Social Security costs, which I don't have that. I don't have access to that. Do you think the number proposed for the 2024 and the 2025 of the 130,000 and the 90,000 is going to cover if you're going to do a 5% increase in salary for the workers?
It's going to cost us 7.5%.
And if I could ask, would this
That's right.
apply to election day workers or our early voting workers as well?
Everybody
Everyone.
who
Okay.
works for us.
Yeah, I think it has to be across the board.
Yeah, to be
Because
fair.
they have an hourly rate versus a lump sum.
Right.
So we still increase the hourly rate by the same.
Well, that is a good question, but I do think everybody needs an increase.
Well, the county gave a raise to everybody, salaried and
Yeah.
hourly.
How much was that?
And Jackie and I
5%.
5%,
discussed,
all
discussing with you at a later meeting, but prior to the election, working with the site managers, which is something we've used in name at our early voting sites, but they make the same amount. But we've discussed naming them and giving them a more comprehensive duties list and then increasing their pay a little bit more because they have more responsibility than what the rest of the early voting workers. So,
I think that's a good
but I
idea.
don't think it would be substantial, and we looked at these numbers, and because in one election, there's only 2 sites, and then another, there's 3, we felt like we could work it in because it's 2.5 weeks.
Kelly, when we discuss this, if we can get a readout on how much they're getting and how much you think they should be getting, we can make a decision.
And we
rather
do have a folder.
rather
in
than
our-
guess.
Well, and we were basing off of if the regular early voting workers made 12, which is what they worked, we were thinking 15 was
What are they doing now?
12 an
12.
hour.
Everybody's getting 12.
Everyone's getting 12.
Okay, so you want to make the site managers a higher rate than the 12.
We were thinking 15 would be fair, because they do have a little bit more responsibility.
And that's it's 3 early voting sites only,
3 or 2.
3.
Depending on the
election.
election,
Right.
yes, sir.
For the municipal, we'd only have 2 early voting sites. For the general and the primary, we'd have 3 early
Yeah.
voting sites. So it just,
Well, that's okay, because the 5%, we're going to end up with some people getting less than or more than. So, yeah, the numbers should still be okay.
I just have a couple of things I want to say, just as a matter of playing devil's advocate a little bit here, and I'm with you all on what you're talking about. But in terms of thinking that we're going to solve managing or having folks at some of the problem precincts, when we were working on manning Mans Harbor, East Lake, there was Chickamaucomico. I got on the horn and I called people I knew in those communities to try to find more people. And I had conversations with a lot of people I've known for years. And I have to say, this is anecdotal now, but I probably talked to 25 people at least. And in those calls, what I got back from those calls was the reason people were not willing to step forward had to do with everything from family emergencies or things that had changed that knocked people out of being able to do it, people who regularly had done it, and also ideological divisiveness in those communities where people didn't want to be a part of, the election because of the vitriol that they collected in their churches or in their community, with distrust and things like that on a small scale, affecting some individuals. I'm not sure that a 5% increase on somebody making $12 is going to make much difference. That's going to be $12.60. They'll have a 60-cent increase. And they look at that and they look at these other community forces that are in play on them. And I personally I have a hard time believing that's going to make any difference. So I felt like I'm not trying to throw a wet blanket on what you're talking about, but I do know that from all my conversations, the reasons the people didn't come forward in those problem precincts had to do with other things. I'd never heard one person mention money.
Oh, I have.
I didn't
I
hear it.
definitely
You
have
did?
heard people say that this is not much money for a lot of work.
Okay.
But I think I agree that, 60 cents might not make a difference to someone, but it shows that we care, that we acknowledge,
And like I said, I'm with you, but I just feel like I don't want to build all my expectations about this, that it's going to change
No, I
the
agree.
problems that we have and for anybody watching who's not versed in this subject, this is fairly much a normal dynamic that a board of elections would have to deal with in any community. I don't really see that we're an aberration. I didn't get that. And there are a lot of really good people who step up and to service our elections and work for our voters. But, I just looked at, what the amount of increase would be. And
I would do it for nothing, but I know that I am not.
well, you're an
unique.
election nerd.
I am an election
Yeah.
nerd. These people work hard. It is a lot of responsibility.
question.
They do have to put up with vitriol.
Oh, you said the county.
and I think,
Going up 5%.
I think if we can do anything to show their appreciation, we should.
Yeah.
Well, the county went up 5%. That's what we're basing it on.
Right. And I think that's a good
So let's,
footing.
granted, it's only 2 cents or 15 cents. The answer is, you got a 5% raise, folks.
Yeah.
All right?
And we
That's-
appreciate your service.
And,
Yeah.
and because you do such a nice job, we worked out a 5% raise. It covered their taxes. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay? It covers their social security and Medicare.
Yeah.
And Ken will buy him lunch.
And I'll buy them lunch if I could go to the meetings.
All right. So, would somebody like to,
Wait. We decided the coding for 2025 is going up from 20 to 25,
Yes.
right? Okay.
It
Yes.
looks like 4 numbers on this have changed. Is that what you have, Randy?
That's what I calculated with, yes, 4.
Okay. So.
All
I
right,
think-
so is anyone able to, are we at the end of this discussion that we could, you know, go
Yes.
back through it and give a synopsis of the changes and put that in a motion, that we accept the budget with these changes?
Well, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, give us time. We can find some more questions to ask, but we won't.
I know. Well, we all had an opportunity to do that before this meeting too. So,
No, we didn't.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So the part-time election worker salaries line item, is that staying at 130 or is it going up to include that additional 2.5% that you were just talking about?
7.5.
So,
Social Security is 7.5. State employment, they don't pay food, all they pay is 7.5% out of their salary.
well, you took it up 5%
Randy,
from 123
That sounds like
to
a friendly
130.
amendment to the motion you haven't made yet.
No, I'm just trying to come up with a number here to make any sense.
So you're saying with the 5%, part of that would get eaten up by FICA, Social Security. So if we calculated it at
It's
7.5%,
No, every time you go up, everything else.
Well,
goes
we
up.
bumped it up a little, didn't we? Because
Yeah,
it was like 129 for 5%
Yeah.
exactly. So we did already bump it up a little when we went to 130.
yeah.
same thing with the 90.
And we bumped it up a little with the 85 that went to 89. It's not 7.5, I don't think.
I thought it was 85 to 90.
And yes, well, 5% was 89, but we kind of rounded
Oh,
up.
okay.
But it's still not up to 7.5.
Right.
So that's the issue, I think.
Well, see, the problem is we gotta get a person payroll, we gotta go through all the taxes. And we don't have the time here.
Well, I think 7.5 makes sense. And I think Randy's doing the numbers now.
No, it doesn't make sense because if you make $1,000 and you get a 5% raise, you make $1,050, and $1,000 you pay $75, and $1,050 at 7.5% is how much? I don't say.
1,050 estimate.
7.5%. About 78, right?
Uh, 1,128.
I don't know, how much is 7.5% of 1050?
That's what okay,
I'm trying to figure out the social security tax on it.
5, 60 times,
It's-
okay. 0.75, $78.75.
Okay, if you get a 5% raise on $1,000, you make $50 more. Your social security and Medicaid can go up $3.78. So 5% is okay. Right? You go up 50 and you lose 3. Will you take $47 more than you started with the raise?
Yeah.
Yes. So 5% across the board is fine. It will cover the social security also.
Okay.
All right.
See, right?
We trust you.
Yeah.
No, don't trust me.
You're the accountant.
You see what I did?
Yeah.
I mean, all right.
Hey, I like back of the envelope numbers, so those look
Well,
good.
Well, isn't that right, though?
No, yes, I'm agreeing with you. I'm
Oh,
agreeing
okay.
with you.
Yeah,
Yes.
all right.
Randy, were you about to make a motion?
I want to make sure.
Okay.
I want to make sure, Jackie, I know this conversation has gone back and forth in some interesting directions, and I apologize for that. But do you have the changes that,
So, let me go over what I have.
okay,
Part-time election workers, 2024 is 130 and 2025 is 90.
yes,
Okay, telephone and postage for 2024 is 14K, and then we're keeping in 2025 at 12. And
Yeah.
then ballots and coding for 2024 is staying 28, and then we're bumping it up for 2025 to 25K. Is that
That's what I
correct?
have.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, did we make any?
So that's three changes, right?
Did we
Well,
make?
4 number
Four.
changes.
numbers.
It's 4
1, 2,
numbers.
yeah, that's right, 4,
Yeah.
okay.
And we did not make a change in supplies because you've added some money there anyway, $2,000.
But we were talking about the supplies, but I did bump it up 2,000 already for both years.
That's why we
Yeah,
didn't
I
bump it
think
up.
And I
that's
think
why
you
we
said that was-
discussed it.
Yeah, that's
but
okay.
I don't think there was any
I think that's right.
feeling
Okay.
that was what we needed to do.
10%, we don't even go to 1,100, so that's more than 10%.
Yeah, so.
All right, are we ready for a motion with those as amendments to the budget, the present budget?
I am.
Okay.
I would move that the board accept the budget as revised in the areas Jackie just indicated and forward that appropriately to the county.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All right. Is there any other discussion? All right, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the proposed budget for years 2024, 2025, as noted, and I'm going to read what I understand that they are. That would be on salaries for part-time election workers. The request for 2024 would go from 123,000 to 130,000, which is a 5% across the board increase. For year 2025 request, it would go from 85,000 to 90,000. Under the line item telephone and postage for year 2024, we would go from $12,000 to $14,000, with year 2025 remaining at $12,000. On ballots and coding line item, we would the amendment would change that from, for year 2025, from 20,000 to 25,000. All right, did I get that?
No,
The way you-
correction. You said 5%. It's not.
It's 7.5.
It's about.
It's
5%.
about, because we bumped it up a
Right,
little to
right,
around-
So-
7.5.
so If you put in
No.
5%, the accounting people are gonna change that number to be 128.
All right, so we're going to stay on the number.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With
don't
no
worry
other-
about, don't
no
worry
other-
about the percentage.
Okay, all right.
Do away with the 5%.
Okay, all right.
It's about 5%,
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, so,
rounded up.
is there any other discussion on this?
I would only ask if there's any questions from staff before we vote as to what we're doing. Okay.
All right, then let's vote. All those in favor of the proposed budget as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, then the budget is passed as such.
And I'll make my entry and make sure I have this in by the deadline.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for great work down there, ladies and gentlemen.
Our pleasure. It does raise a question which you started to talk about earlier, which is how does the board monitor ongoing spending? And I know this has come up in the past. And I'm not sure, I know that Jackie, you responded to that. This is some months ago when I think the question first came up as to who generates the reports. So you can track spending. Is that internal to your office, or are you getting something back from finance?
I don't get anything from finance. I have access to the database, which is called Munis, where I can go in there and look at my line items and keep an eye on my line items. But as far as a tracking of my expenditures individually, the only thing that I would have is I would have a procurement card, which I have a procurement card to make purchases with, and those are reconciled each month, where I fill out a report and send it to the Dare County Finance Office and to the county manager for his signature and approval of payment. And then I have invoices that would come in, such as the ballots and coding and things of that nature that come from vendors. And I fill out what is called a check voucher to pay those bills, and that is signed off on by the county manager and then sent to the accounts payable person.
So what I'm hearing is that all records of expenditure, so being able to look at what's budgeted for a month and what's being spent, rests with your office. Now, you may get information back from different people, different departments from time to time, but you're the one who's responsible for keeping track of it. You're not getting a monthly report from finance that says your budget for the month was X and you
No,
spent
I do
X
not
month.
get that, no, I do not get
Okay.
a report.
I'm always told I talk too much, and I always agree with that statement. But it would be very useful, I think, for the board, and hopefully not a terrible burden for the staff. I would suggest that one or two members of this board, conscious of meeting requirements, so I want to make sure either have the chair delegate an individual to work with the staff to figure out a way that answers our question, which is understanding what's going on just from a fiscal basis as spending goes out. And that is information, and that is not criticism. That's just simply wanting information. It would certainly inform our budget discussions going forward if we had that ability. Now, whether people pay attention to it when they receive that information is something else again. I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that perhaps you and Jackie talk post-meeting, determine whether you wish to be the person who works that out with her, or if you would want to delegate that to an individual board member.
Yeah.
Frankly, my preference would be to have the chair, but I'm more than willing to defer after you've thought about it.
Yeah, I'll take that under advisement, and Jackie and I can talk about that. But I think that we're on a really good path here, and it's one that, it's the way we should be doing business around our budget. And I think if we develop, a kind of a overall look at what's going on based on historical data, and we see which numbers are more lively than others in certain areas, and we have a better basis to make some of these decisions that we just made.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
They should be grounded in that kind of information,
Yeah.
not us guessing that the post office is going to go up or this is going to happen. I mean, that's part of it, but we're missing historical data here on which of the line items are the ones that usually run wild when things get crazy out there. And so it's something
I think we don't have any line items that run wild. Most of our expenditures they are what they are, and they're only during election cycles at certain time periods.
Yeah.
Now, we only have one supply. The supply line item would be the only line item that you would see that would have, a lot of activity.
Yeah.
During an election cycle.
Yeah, the
Because
dynamics
we
are
would
going
have
to be, they're going to be more of a creep in these things as far as cost. They'll creep up. They're not going to be things that are going to jump up like in the business that I was in with residential construction, where certain things would be wildly dynamic. And so
the majority of our line items are stationary
Yeah.
line items, that they are things that they don't really, the cost might increase some, but as far as having sporadic up and down, they would not. The only line item that I would say that would have that possibly would be the supply line item, depending on what supplies are needed for each election. Some elections we have to buy more of certain things because we do have to supply each precinct with a lot of different things. And that would be the only line item that you would see possibly up. And that is our most active line item.
Yeah.
Only during an election cycle.
I see. All right.
I go back to my request that Chairman and Jackie spend some time noodling on that, because I do think that regular reporting of expenditures versus budget allows the board to make more intelligent decisions when it comes time to budget. And frankly, it's part of the fiscal responsibilities of boards anyway.
Yeah.
No matter how good the
We have
staff
to
is.
vote on
And
it.
so this is not a reflection. Let me make it very clear. It is not a reflection on the quality of our staff, which we recognize is excellent. It is a reflection on our ability to ask questions that are slightly more intelligent when it comes to budget time.
Yes.
And instead of being accused of guessing, I would only be accused of intelligent guessing.
Right, that's right. That's about what it is too. All right, so we're finished with budget.
Yeah.
For now. And I'll, Jackie and I'll talk
I
about
don't think we need,
a means of
No,
You
no,
know,
I
no.
think we need a.
No, I'm just asking.
having regular board oversight, but I'm gonna go ahead and send something into the county, in terms of having something produced that where we can see things move along. And I'm assuming that the board would want to see something on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis. Probably,
Well, we don't have expenditures on a monthly basis.
Right.
That's the thing.
so it would have
Unless
to
it's
be,
during an election cycle, then we might have monthly expenditures, but on a monthly basis, we don't. I can tell you right now off the top of my head, I've probably used my procurement card one time since the first of the year, and that was to purchase some ink cartridges for the printer that Kelly has at her desk.
Excuse me, can we make it quarterly except for elections?
well, I was just thinking about that very thing and how the elections, we might want to do it per fiscal year, but I mean, Jackie, what would you think would be the best way to apply oversight to the budget as we roll through these 2 years, the
Quarterly.
fiscal years? What, you don't really know?
That's your preference.
Yeah.
I don't-
You could
I mean,
do-
it's,
You could do it monthly. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right.
So it's
Well, that's the way I
relatively
look
easy
at
to
it,
go, You know,
I would suggest monthly and suggest that it be based on the fiscal year because that's the way we have to budget.
yeah,
And just because the fiscal year doesn't match up with the calendar year or the election year doesn't matter.
yeah.
But again, I would say working out those details with Jackie and Kelly would be very important before
Yeah.
we took any action and
Right.
to see what's reasonable
Mhm.
in terms of their ability to produce the kinds of reports that we want. And,
Yeah. Do you have on this spreadsheet, I don't know how this is set up. I mean, I had one that would show me unit cost and it would show me estimated cost and actual cost on every single line item of 29 or 30 phases of building a house. Do you
Because
have anything
I
like
don't
that?
know- I don't, the only thing that I get, for example, I get quotes for prior to ordering is our cards. So I'll contact the vendor and say, hey, I need to order verification cards or I need to order confirmation cards. And they'll send me a quote as to what it costs. And then from that quote, I decide which is my best option where I can get the most for a little money. So I'll get that quote and based on that, but that's the only thing I get quotes for. I don't get quotes for anything other than our confirmation cards and our verification cards. Everything else, the cost is what it is. Whatever they tell me the cost is, that's what I get, but then I don't know the cost up front as far as the ballots, for example, ballots and coding. I don't know what that actual cost is gonna be until I actually get the invoice.
Okay,
So what I basically have to do
What are we
is
doing?
like,
What are we doing?
so you report the invoice to the county? I mean, they get it, of course.
no, I get the invoice and I create the check voucher for payment,
Okay.
send it to the county manager for his signature and approval, and then it's paid
Excuse me,
by our
folks.
finance
Whoa, whoa,
department.
whoa. This is something that's offline. This is not part of our discussion. This is,
Right, right.
well, all we need is what our budget is, how much we spend a month, how much is left. Simple. Let us continue on so we.
We'll figure out a
let's
way
not-
to
let's
get
not
a
hold this-
report that shows estimated cost, actual cost and all that,
Come on,
that would probably
Yeah.
end up helping you.
There's nothing that can, we
Not-
don't have,
not-
we don't do stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, let's go with the director's report, please.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll handle that later.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is director's report. Do you have anything
The
for that?
director's report, I really don't have a whole lot on that. I have been asked to, host our District 8 meeting here. So I'll be hosting the District 8 meeting here for the directors and staff on March the 17th. Then the NCADE, which is the North Carolina Association of Directors of Elections, is having a conference on March the 26th and 27th in New Bern. So Kelly and I will be attending that. That's all I have.
All right.
And neither one of those are open to board members?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry, you're not
Except one.
invited.
As an election nerd, I just thought I'd ask.
Ma'am.
Do you have a date for the training requirements for the board yet?
I do not. It will be
Okay.
sometime in August, and that has been emphasized to us that only new board members need to attend that. So it's going to be in August, but I don't have a location or anything on that yet.
Okay.
All right.
That's a presumption that old board members have paid attention the last
Yeah,
time
how old
around.
is an old woman?
So when you all go to New Bern, will you close down the office or will somebody be in the office?
I'm not sure about that. If we do have to close it down, I don't think it's an issue because we don't have anything going on.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
You could tell me.
And it's a Monday and a Tuesday, so we would leave on Sunday and be gone Monday and Tuesday. I don't know, if nothing else, we can forward our phones to the front desk.
I think the secretary may be volunteering to
Yeah.
come in.
And she would do it
and,
too.
Throw me in that briar
Might not
patch.
like it because right now there's nothing going on. I mean, we're lucky to get a phone call a week.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
If there's any time for the office to be closed, it would be now is a good time.
Good.
Anyone have any other business?
I have a question.
Mhm.
So during the discussions, there was some back and forth about salary levels and satisfaction, dissatisfaction of poll workers, okay? So has there been any attempt to solicit feedback from our poll workers?
About
We have
pay or
not.
about what?
Hmm?
About pay or about what?
Well,
About anything?
anything that
Yeah.
affects them with respect to their efforts associated with the polls. Because if it's something other than a monetary issue, we're shooting at the wrong duck. So,
We do
Yeah,
have
they do.
communication, open line of communication with all the precinct officials. We
Uh-huh.
speak to them during and after training. We speak to them during and after the close of the election to ask them how things
Oh, good.
went,
okay.
things of that
Every
nature.
poll worker gets called prior to an election. I think there's a bigger picture here, and so when you're talking about the precincts that were hard to staff, there's 3 or 4 of them. So it's less than 10 poll workers out of 100 that are positions that we're having trouble filling. We've got other precincts where I have 20 applicants every election that I can't fill because we staff them with knowledgeable, experienced workers, and because of the volume, rotating new people in is actually less beneficial to Dare County than to keep the same ones who are willing to work every single time.
Okay.
So there's a broader picture here,
Mhm.
but a lot of what we are seeing is these are really small communities and they're very long days. And you take the average age of a poll worker to be a little, maybe older than 50 plus. Most of the feedback I'm getting on some of that is either employment because it's in the middle of the week,
Mhm.
childcare, or the length of the day. It's a very long day. By statute, they're required to work a 14, 16, 17-hour day.
Mhm.
So even though we can accommodate them as much as possible with chairs and, our precincts are very nice, it's just finding people who are willing to put in that much time. The money is important, I think, and especially for our early voting workers. I like that we pay them at least 12 and that you guys are thinking about bumping that up. I think it's wonderful. But I think there's more factors involved there. And a lot of it that I'm hearing is, a big part of it is the age and the length of the day. And also, your base is really small in some of these
Mhm.
places like Manslaughter and Stumpy
think
Point.
it's March
And like Kelly
21st.
said, the money is not really an
Third
issue for a lot of them,
Tuesday.
because we get them calling us saying we want to volunteer.
They
We're
still
not-
think it's volunteer.
We were like, it's not
Yeah, yeah,
volunteer,
yeah,
it's
that's
paid, you know,
Yeah.
so.
And that's county policy. They can't volunteer. They must be paid. They must do paperwork. They must go through training. And when they realize that, also technically, it's increased a lot. We've had some sit through training and go, well, this is way more than I thought it was gonna be.
And they don't want to do the
When
training.
they realize how much the technical aspects of elections has grown and the responsibility, it becomes something that they're not as interested in doing. So it's getting harder to kind of hone in on skilled workers, but unfortunately, that's the nature of elections. It has grown to be a lot more skilled than just filling out a carbon copy pad like it used to be. So there is a lot of different reasons why it's become more challenging in some precincts.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
All right. Anyone have anything else? All right. Our next meeting will be March 21st at 10 a.m. And hope to see you there. And I don't have anything else. So seeing that that is the way it is, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much for coming.
Bravo.